I'd love to have a conversation with you about something that I think Stoicism is missed.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Just got thick in here, didn't it? Is the way that we work with emotions.
Okay.
And so there's an ordering in Stoicism about thoughts. Get your thoughts right.
Sure.
Work from that place. And I go, yeah, thoughts are upstream. We know from best in class modern science that it is bidirectional. Thoughts influence emotions, emotions influence thoughts.
Sure.
And then in between, we've got feelings, which is our subjective interpretation of the raw data of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So feelings are like private
Yeah.
and they're internal, and emotions are public and observable.
Sure.
So heart pounding is an emotion.
Yeah.
And then how you label it is your feeling. Okay. So I think we need more compassion. I think we need to work from emotion because we've numbed them for so long and we've been afraid of them for so long. And I do think at the time of Stoicism, it made perfect sense not to be run over by emotions.
Sure.
And look, if you're going to be over emotional, you can't do and make the hard decisions. I can't count on you because we've got hard decisions to make.
Sure.
I need to kill 100,000 people.
Yeah. Or you could be killed at any moment. Your kid could die of some terrible disease at any moment.
And if you panic and you're overrun by emotion, then you can't make the clear decision. Because we do know that emotions cloud judgment.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a brain structure type of thing. Okay. Now, but if you can dance well with emotion,
mm-hmm.
and you can dance well with thoughts, and you can play there just a little bit more, I think the world is calling for not an uncontrollable emotional human,
mm-hmm.
but a thoughtful, compassionate, dare I say, person that is working to make something better. That's where purpose is so important.
Yeah.
Because purpose tends to be about something that's bigger than you.
Sure.
Right? And that tends to be about the planet or other people or animals or something, right?
Agreed.
So I would love, so I'm caught in this, and I've been looking forward to talking to you about this because I think you'll have a point of view here that I'm missing.
Well, there's this stereotype of the Stoics being totally emotionless, being robotic, sort of stuffing it all down, suppressing it, or being somehow getting to some monk-like transcendent state where you no longer feel emotions or anything at all, which I think totally misses it. So I did this book a few years ago called Lives of the Stoics, where instead of sort of really like diving into what the Stoics said, I just tried to write these biographies of who they were. Now, the Stoics got married, the Stoics had kids, the Stoics made works of art, the Stoics played sports, the Stoics fought for political causes. There was this whole generation of Stoics called the Stoic opposition, which was basically a series of resistance fighters who gave their lives in many cases against the tyranny of like several bad emperors in a row, including Nero. So, and there's even one Stoic, there's a Stoic named Chrysippus who died of laughter. Like he was just laughing so hard he was old, he probably had a heart attack and died. So I think when we actually look at who they were in practice, it's very different than maybe what comes off in the page. And so my sort of take, and maybe this is a modern interpretation, which I'm also okay with, like they're dead. They can't get mad at me for changing things. But my interpretation is that the Stoics were not about the suppression of the emotion, but about understanding and processing, and then hopefully making fewer decisions on those emotions. So I like your distinction between having the emotion and the feel, like being angry and punching someone because you're angry are different things, right? So to me, Stoicism is the stopping yourself before you throw the punch, as opposed to stopping yourself before you get upset that someone called you a terrible name.
Yeah, and then the thing that I wrestle with, and just like I said early on, like Stoicism is awesome, and I've been attracted to it. And I wouldn't have thought this probably 5 years ago, that we need more compassion.
Agreed.
So and then if you square it with relationship based, okay, so that's where at Finding Mastery, we're using that in our culture to be a relationship based organization as well. And to be in a relationship based organization, I need to know not only your thoughts,
Yeah.
That's good.
Mhm.
I need to know your history.
Sure.
I need to know the way you feel about your future and your history. And it's the feelings that allows for the deeper knowing. And so I just want to ring the bell a little bit here about compassion's a really good thing in a world that is thrashing.
Of course.
And there's a vulnerability to be compassionate. And
so the cardinal Stoic virtues are courage, which I think people associate with the Stoics. Then there's discipline, which people associate with the Stoics. Then there's wisdom, which people associate with the Stoics. But the fourth one, or which I guess would be the third, is the one I'm writing about now, which I think is less discussed, sort of skipped over, is the virtue of justice, which is where I would put things like compassion and empathy and fairness and kindness and caring about the world and trying to have a positive impact.
that's interesting.
So it's like, it's not like it was this minor afterthought. Like a core pillar, like one of the four pillars is this idea of justice. And to me, one of the ways I've thought about this is like, okay, Stoicism in what I control says like, hey, try not to go around being offended all the time, try not to be overwhelmed by your emotions, etc. But that doesn't change the fact that other people get offended and other people have emotions. And so I don't see there's anything contradictory about caring about that, right? So Stoicism isn't, it's funny, there was this case a few years ago where this guy was just a real asshole at his job and he gets fired for being an asshole. And he says, he ends up suing, I think this is in the UK, he sues the employer for discriminating against him and his religion, which he said was Stoicism. And his Stoicism said that he didn't have to care about other people, he could dress how he wanted, he didn't have to it was basically like he was saying Stoicism allowed him to be a jerk, which I think is totally missing the point, right?
Course, yeah.
I don't think there's any contradiction about empathy in Stoicism. It's saying, hey, you should probably go around and you yourself should probably not be an open wound that's horribly offended by what other people say all the time. But that doesn't mean that you get to hold other people to that standard and say, yeah, look, I just call it like I see it. Radical candor here. I'm not polite. So for me, I think we're probably more in alignment here than people might think. And one of the things that actually gets me upset and I find myself pushing back on, and again, to go to our point about not caring what the audience thinks, like I know if I talk about courage, the Stoic audience likes it. If I talk about self-discipline, the audience likes it. If I talk about wisdom and how to learn and get smart, the audience likes it. But if I talk about justice, then people get upset, right? And I can see people unsubscribe. I see them get mad. If I present Stoicism as here's a recipe for being a better, more productive sociopath, that finds a larger audience and is less upsetting than if I go, hey, it's important that you give a shit about other people, and it's important that you give a shit about the planet, and that ethics matter, and moral. Right. Like, so I talk about those things at significant expense to myself because I think they're important. I think it's a really important part of Stoicism. And I think it's why when you look at the lives of the Stoics, you see that they got involved in politics and they participated and they served their country. They were involved. We have this understanding of philosophy as something that withdraws you from the world, which is what the Epicureans did, right? The Epicureans retreat to this garden and they work on sort of perfecting their own development. And Stoicism, I think at its core says that's not right. Somebody has to be involved because if you seed the field, somebody else takes over. And so, long story short, I do think there is a place for emotion, particularly compassion in Stoicism. And I think caring and participating is not just like a part of it, but like a key obligation of the philosophy.